Jiwan stood in the massive council chamber watching the alien delegates argue about humanity's future. The room was built to intimidate. Crystal pillars reached toward a ceiling that seemed to stretch forever. Each alien species had their own section arranged by power and influence. Humans sat in the smallest area near the back. The Vorthak looked like living diamonds. Their bodies caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. They had ruled the galaxy for over 2 million years. The Illumi were beings made of pure energy, glowing in shifting colors as they thought. They considered themselves the wisest race in existence. The collective appeared as thousands of small creatures that moved as one mind. Together, these 3 races controlled everything. Jiwan had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years. He had watched these aliens make decisions about human colonies without asking humans what they wanted. Today was worse than usual. The Council was voting to take away human mining rights in the Outer Rim. These were colonies that humans had built with their own hands, their own blood and sweat. "The motion passes," announced Councillor Zethar of the Vorthak. His voice sounded like breaking glass. "All human mining operations in Sectors 7 through 15 will transfer to Vorthak oversight within 60 standard days." Jiwan stood up. "You cannot do this. Those colonies have been ours for 30 years. We have families there, entire communities." Zethar's crystal face showed no emotion. "The Council has determined that Vorthak technology can extract resources more efficiently. Humans may remain as workers under Vorthak supervision." "Workers?" Jiwan felt his anger rising. "You mean slaves?" A ripple of what might have been laughter came from the Illumi section. Their leader, Luxman, spoke in a voice like singing crystal. "Humans are emotional creatures. Perhaps when you evolve beyond these primitive reactions, you might contribute more to galactic civilization." The collective's thousands of small voices spoke as one. Humans serve best when guided by superior minds. This arrangement benefits all. Jiwan looked around the chamber. Other species watched silently. The bird-like Avilians, the plant-based Verdani, the aquatic deep swimmers. All of them had learned to stay quiet when the Big Three made decisions. All of them had been pushed around just like humans, but today brought something worse. Zethar activated a holographic display. "The Council also approves Directive 847. All human colonies will participate in genetic modification programs. Different colonies will be optimized for different functions. Mining colonies will develop stronger bodies and better resistance to toxic environments. Agricultural colonies will improve their ability to work with plants. Research colonies will enhance their mental capabilities." The chamber fell silent. Jiwan stared at the display showing human DNA being rewritten like computer code. They wanted to redesign humans like tools, different versions for different jobs. "You want to split our species," Jiwan said slowly. "Make us into specialized slaves. We prefer the term optimization," Zethar replied. "Humans have shown remarkable adaptability. We simply wish to direct that adaptability toward useful purposes." Jiwan thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was 7 years old and dreamed of exploring new worlds. He thought about the miners on Kepler Station who had built their community from nothing. He thought about the researchers on Luna Base who had solved problems that stumped alien scientists for centuries. "No," he said. The word echoed in the vast chamber. Several aliens turned to look at him. Zethar's crystal body shifted, angles changing as he focused on the human ambassador. "Excuse me?" the Vorthak counselor said. "I said no. We will not accept this directive. We will not be redesigned to serve your purposes." Luxmind's energy form flickered with what looked like amusement. "Humans have no choice in this matter. The Council has voted. You will comply." Jiwan walked to the center of the chamber. His footsteps sounded loud in the silence. "For 60 years we have tried to be good partners. We shared our technology. We helped solve problems. We fought in wars that were not our own. We asked only to be treated as equals." He turned slowly, looking at each section of the chamber. "Instead, you have treated us as junior partners at best, useful pets at worst. You take our worlds, our resources, our people, And now you want to remake us in your image of what we should be. This is how the galaxy works, Zethar said. Younger species learn from older ones. You should be grateful for our guidance. Grateful? Jiwan laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what we call this arrangement? Slavery. You can dress it up with fancy words about optimization and guidance, but you want to own us. The collective's many voices spoke together. Humans are being unreasonable. This is for their own benefit. Our benefit? Jiwan shook his head. Let me tell you what would benefit us. Being allowed to develop on our own. Being treated as partners, not servants. Having a say in decisions that affect our people. He walked toward the exit, then stopped and turned back. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We reject your authority over our colonies, our people, and our future. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens called out in dozens of languages. Some sounded angry, others confused. Zethar's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. You cannot simply leave. No species has ever left the council. Then we will be the first, Jiwan replied. Consider this our declaration of independence. We came to the stars seeking partnership and found only masters who see us as tools to be shaped for their convenience. Where will you go? Luxmind asked. We control every habitable system in this galaxy. Jiwan smiled for the first time that day. The galaxy is a big place, bigger than you know. He walked toward the exit again. This time he did not stop. You are making a terrible mistake, Zethar called after him. Humans cannot survive without the Council's protection and guidance. At the doorway, G1 paused one final time. We survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and the journey to the stars without your help. I think we will manage. As the doors closed, behind him G1 heard the aliens beginning to argue among themselves. Let them argue. Humanity had work to do. He thought about the secret preparations that had been going on for years. The hidden shipyards, the unexplored systems, the research projects that even allied species knew nothing about. The aliens thought they knew everything about humans. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The council chamber grew quiet. Behind him, as G1 walked toward the docking bay where his ship waited. Soon all of human space would be just as quiet. The aliens would have what they wanted, a galaxy without troublesome humans asking for equal treatment. They would also discover what they had lost. President Deho sat at the head of the emergency assembly table on Earth. Representatives from every human colony appeared on holographic displays around him. The room buzzed with quiet conversations as people waited for the meeting to begin. Theo, vote is complete, Deho announced. Every colony has agreed. We are leaving council space entirely. The decision had not been difficult. When news of Directive 847 reached the colonies, the response was immediate and angry. No one wanted their children turned into specialized tools for alien convenience. This is not just about leaving, Deho continued. This is about survival. We all know the council will not let us go peacefully. They need us too much. Colonel Minhee stood up from her seat. She was head of the Colonial Defense Corps, and she looked tired. Operation Exodus is ready to begin. We have been preparing for this possibility for 15 years. A murmur went through the room. Many representatives looked surprised. They had not known about any preparation. 15 years? Asked Governor Sajin from the Tau Ceti colony. You have been planning this for 15 years? Minhee nodded. Since first contact, some people worried that this day would come. Humans have never been good at accepting masters. Our history shows this clearly. She activated a display that showed star maps. Red dots marked human colonies in council space. Blue dots showed something else. Locations outside council territory that most people had never seen before. We have been exploring beyond the galactic rim for over a decade, Minhee explained. We found star systems that the council has never discovered. We built hidden bases and shipyards. We have been preparing homes for our people. Dr. Hyun joined her at the display. He was the head of human research operations. We also prepared for technology transfer. Every piece of human technology will be destroyed or removed. Nothing stays behind. You want us to abandon everything? Asked Representative Nari from Mars Colony. Everything we cannot take with us, Hyun confirmed. The Council thinks of us as useful servants. When we leave, they cannot have our tools to replace us with robots. The scale of the operation was massive. Over 200 million humans lived in space colonies. Each colony needed ships to carry people and equipment to new homes light years away. The logistics seemed impossible. How long will this take? Daeho asked. 6 months for complete evacuation, Minhee replied. We start with the outer colonies and work inward. Earth goes last. What about the aliens living on our worlds? Asked Governor Taemin from New Seoul Station. They are welcome to come with us or return to council space, Daeho said. But they cannot stay on human worlds under alien government. We are done being ruled by others. The evacuation began within days. Transport ships that had been secretly built in hidden asteroid shipyards emerged from empty space. They were larger than anything humans had built before, designed specifically for moving entire populations. The first to leave were the mining colonies in the outer rim. Families packed their belongings and said goodbye to homes they had built with their own hands. But there was no sadness in their faces. There was determination. On Kepler Station, Engineer Tae Yang oversaw the dismantling of the fusion generators that powered the mining operation. Strip everything, he told his team. Processors, memory cores, even the basic components. If we designed it, we take it. What they could not take, they destroyed. Tae Yang watched as the massive processing plant that had taken 5 years to build was reduced to scrap metal in hours. The aliens could have the asteroid, but they would get none of the human technology that made it valuable. Similar scenes played out across human space. Research stations deleted their databases and destroyed their equipment. Manufacturing plants dismantled their production lines. Even simple things like atmospheric processors were removed or sabotaged beyond repair. The aliens noticed quickly. Governor Vexthar of the Vorthak sent angry messages to Earth demanding explanations. You cannot remove essential infrastructure. Other species depend on human-built systems. Daeho's response was simple. We built those systems. We can remove them. If you want them, you should have treated us better. As weeks passed, the full scale of human integration into galactic infrastructure became clear. Humans had not just been workers or colonists. They had been the engineers who designed most of the Council's automated systems. They had been the negotiators who prevented wars between smaller species. They had been the problem solvers who fixed issues that alien minds could not handle. Dr. Sora worked frantically at the Luna research base, copying decades of scientific data onto portable storage devices. Did you know that 70% of the navigation systems in Council space use human-designed software? She asked her assistant. I thought the Illumi designed those systems, the young scientist replied. The Illumi provided the energy sources and the Vorthak built the hardware, Sora explained. But humans wrote the programs that make them work. We think differently than they do. We see patterns they miss. This was becoming a problem for the Council. As human technicians evacuated, systems began failing. Automated defenses around Vorthak worlds started showing error messages that no one could understand. Trade networks disrupted as human-maintained communication relays went offline. The Council tried to stop the evacuation by sending military ships to human colonies. They found empty space where bustling communities had existed. The humans had vanished so completely that it seemed like magic. What the Council did not know was that human exploration had found something in the space beyond the galactic rim. In a region called the Kepler Void, survey teams had discovered ruins of an ancient civilization. Ji-won, now serving as coordinator for the evacuation, studied reports from the archaeological teams. The ancient ruins contained technology that made Council science look primitive. Better yet, human minds seemed uniquely capable of understanding how it worked. The previous civilization faced the same problems we do, reported Dr. Minseok from the lead archaeological team. They lived under the rule of elder species who saw them as tools. The final records suggest they found a way to transcend those limitations. Transcend how? Ji-won asked. We are still learning. But the technology here operates on principles that none of the Council races discovered. It is as if they found completely new ways to interact with reality. The evacuation continued, ahead of schedule. Humans had always been good at logistics and crisis management. What took alien civilizations years to plan, humans accomplished in months. As the last transport ships departed from the outer colonies, Admiral Zethar of the Vorthak fleet sent one final message to Earth. "This is madness. Where do you think you can go that we cannot follow? We have ruled this galaxy for millions of years." Jiwan sent back a simple response. "The galaxy is bigger than you think, and we are not the same species that asked politely for partnership 60 years ago." By the end of 6 months, human space was empty. Colonies that had thrived for decades were ghost towns. Research stations drifted silent in space. Even Earth's orbital facilities had been stripped and abandoned. The Council was left with the ruins of infrastructure they could not operate, problems they could not solve, and conflicts they could not mediate. For the first time in millions of years, the elder races began to worry. In the Kepler void, humanity began building something new. 1 year after the human exodus, Counselor Zethar stood in his private chamber looking at reports he did not want to believe. The crystal formations that made up his body flickered with stress patterns. The galaxy was falling apart. 67% of deep space monitoring networks have failed, Admiral Vextar of the Illume reported during the emergency council session. "We cannot track ship movements in most outer sectors." The problem was simple but devastating. Humans had built most of the galaxy's automated systems, not just the hardware, but the complex software that made everything work together. When the humans left, they took their knowledge with them. What they could not take, they had destroyed. "Surely we can rebuild these systems," said the collective's primary voice. "We are ancient civilizations with vast technological knowledge." Vextar's energy form flickered with frustration. "Human engineering is different from ours. They think in ways we do not understand. Their systems are elegant but impossible to replicate without understanding their logic." This was the truth that the Council was slowly discovering. For all their age and power, the 3 elder races thought in rigid patterns. The Vorthak approached problems through crystalline logic, always seeking perfect mathematical solutions. The Illumi relied on energy harmonics and light speed calculations. The collective solved issues through massive parallel processing of simple decisions. Humans thought differently. They used intuition, creativity, and something the aliens called inspired guessing to solve problems that should have taken decades of careful calculation. A human engineer could look at a failing system and know what was wrong just by listening to the sounds it made. The breakdown was happening everywhere. On Vorthak Prime, the climate control systems that maintained perfect, growing conditions for their crystal cities had begun malfunctioning. The delicate balance of temperature, humidity, and mineral content that the crystals needed was maintained by millions of tiny sensors and processors, all coordinated by human-designed software. "Our agricultural yields have dropped by 40%, reported Industrial Coordinator Zenthar. "We cannot maintain proper environmental conditions without the human systems." The Illumi faced worse problems. Their entire civilization depended on harmonic generators that converted stellar energy into forms they could absorb. These generators required constant fine-tuning to match the energy frequencies that individual Illumi needed to survive. Human technicians had managed this tuning with an intuitive understanding of wave interactions that Illumi scientists could not replicate. Without proper harmonic tuning, Illumi began experiencing something they had not known for millions of years. Weakness, aging, and eventually death. "We are losing 12 individuals per day," Luxmind reported with growing desperation. "Our own scientists cannot understand the harmonic calculations the humans used." But the collective suffered the worst fate of all. Their hive mind operated through quantum communication networks that allowed millions of individual creatures to think as one consciousness. These networks required constant maintenance and adjustment to prevent signal interference and data corruption. The humans had built and maintained these networks for decades, solving problems that the collective's unified intelligence could not handle. This seemed impossible. How could a single human mind solve problems that millions of collective minds could not? The answer lay in human creativity and individual thinking. The collective's strength was also its weakness. When millions of minds thought the same way, they could not see solutions that required different approaches. A single human technician, thinking alone and creatively, could spot problems and solutions that were invisible to the unified collective consciousness. As the quantum networks degraded, the collective began to fragment. Sections of their consciousness split off and began thinking independently. Some groups forgot they had ever been part of a larger mind. Others went insane from the sudden isolation. Our unity is breaking, the remaining collective voices reported, in panic. We are becoming individuals against our will. Beyond the technological failures, the galaxy faced other problems. Minor species that had lived peacefully under human mediation began fighting among themselves. The bird-like Cathari and the aquatic Solani had shared star systems for centuries, with human diplomats helping them resolve conflicts. Without human intervention, old territorial disputes flared into violence. The fringe wars have spread to 12 systems, reported General Vorthan during another emergency council session. 7 species are involved in active combat. We estimate over 2 million casualties so far. The elder races tried to mediate these conflicts themselves, but they lacked the human talent for understanding different perspectives. Vorthak diplomats approached problems with cold logic that ignored emotional needs. Illumi negotiators focused on energy efficiency and resource optimization. The collective tried to solve everything by suggesting that species merge into unified minds. None of these approaches worked with species that valued independence, cultural identity, and emotional satisfaction over pure efficiency. Humans understood that different species have different needs, observed diplomat Quilara of the Avilians during one failed peace negotiation. They found solutions that satisfied everyone's emotional and practical requirements. You only consider logical efficiency. Trade networks that humans had designed and maintained also began failing. These networks were marvels of complex scheduling that moved goods between thousands of worlds with minimal delays or conflicts. Human coordinators had managed the logistics with a combination of mathematical planning and intuitive adjustments that kept everything flowing smoothly. Without human oversight, the networks collapsed into chaos. Ships arrived at destinations to find no cargo to pick up. Essential supplies were delivered to the wrong planets. Some worlds found themselves with warehouses full of luxury goods while lacking basic food supplies. Meanwhile, in the Kepler void beyond the galactic rim, humanity was discovering wonders that the Council could not imagine. The ancient ruins that archaeological teams had found contained technology that operated on completely different principles from anything in Council space. Dr. Minsuk led the research teams studying the artifacts. These ruins belonged to a civilization that faced the same problems we did, he reported to the human leadership. They were ruled by elder species who saw them as useful tools. Engineer Taeyang examined the ancient machinery with growing excitement. This technology does not just manipulate matter and energy. It manipulates the fundamental forces that create reality: space, time, causality itself. The most amazing discovery was that human minds could understand and operate this ancient technology. The rigid thinking patterns of the elder races that made them so confident in their superiority also made them blind to the possibilities that the ancient civilization had explored. It is as if this technology was designed for minds like ours, Dr. Sora observed. Minds that can think creatively, intuitively, and see connections that pure logic misses. Jiwan, now serving as humanity's coordinator in the void, studied the final records left by the ancient civilization. They faced a council of elder species who tried to reshape them into specialized tools. The records suggest they refused and found a way to transcend those limitations entirely. Transcend how? Asked President Deho during a secure communication from the human colonies. We are still learning, Jiwan replied, but the technology here suggests they became something far beyond what their rulers ever imagined possible. As the second year of human absence began, The Galactic Council faced the collapse of everything they had taken for granted. Systems failed, wars raged, and their own civilizations began breaking down without human maintenance and support. In desperation, they sent scouts to search for the missing humans. The scouts found nothing. Human space was empty, with no clues about where an entire species had gone. What they did not know was that humanity was learning to reshape reality itself, guided by the wisdom of an ancient race that had faced the same choices and transcended the limitations of ordinary existence. The galaxy was about to learn what transcendence looked like. 2 years after humanity's disappearance, the Galactic Council faced its greatest crisis in recorded history. Counselor Zethar stared at the damage reports scrolling across his display. The numbers were worse than anyone had predicted. Industrial. Output on Vorthak Prime has dropped by 60%, he announced to the emergency assembly. Our crystal cities are dying without proper environmental control. The problem had grown beyond simple system failures. The Vorthak civilization depended on precise conditions to grow and maintain their crystal bodies. Human-designed climate control systems had maintained perfect mineral balance, temperature, and energy flow for decades. Without human maintenance, these systems had not just failed. They had begun poisoning the environment that Vorthak life required. We are facing the extinction of our oldest cities, Industrial Coordinator Zenthar reported. Crystal formations that took thousands of years to grow are dissolving in the corrupted atmosphere. The Illumi faced an even worse fate. Energy-based beings required constant harmonic tuning to maintain their consciousness. The generators that provided this tuning had been built with human understanding of wave interactions and frequency modulation. Without human technicians, the generators had fallen out of harmony. We have lost over 3,000 individuals in the past month, Luxmind reported, his energy form flickering weakly. Our brightest minds are fading because we cannot maintain proper energy frequencies. But the collective situation was truly catastrophic. Their quantum communication network, which had unified millions of individual creatures into a single consciousness for eons, had completely collapsed. The result was chaos beyond imagination. We are no longer one mind, reported the fragments that remained connected. Millions of our components have become individual beings. They do not remember their connection to us. Some groups have declared war on other groups. They fight over resources they once shared freely. The elder races tried desperately to understand and repair the human-built systems. They brought their greatest scientists and engineers to study the failed technology. What they found confused and frustrated them. Human engineering makes no logical sense, complained Chief Engineer Vortak of the Vorthak Research Division. Their systems use what appears to be random variation and creative adaptation rather than mathematical precision. This was the core problem. The elder races had always prided themselves on their logical, systematic approach to technology. They built systems that followed clear mathematical rules and operated in predictable patterns. Human engineering was completely different. Humans built systems that could adapt, learn, and evolve. Their software used creativity algorithms that made intuitive leaps and found solutions through inspired guessing, rather than systematic calculation. Their hardware included random elements that somehow improved performance rather than causing chaos. It is as if humans built technology that thinks like they do, observed Illumi scientist Brightmind. Creative, unpredictable, but somehow more effective than our logical approaches. The breakdown extended far beyond technology. The galaxy's political stability had depended heavily on human mediation and diplomacy. Without human negotiators, old conflicts between minor species erupted into full-scale wars. The Ketheri and Solani had been fighting for 18 months over mining rights in the Rigel system. Both species claimed historical ownership of the asteroid belt that contained rare metals essential to their technology. Under human mediation, they had shared the resources peacefully for over 50 years. The Ketheri refused to recognize our ancient claims, reported Solani Ambassador Deepcurrent. They say our historical documents are worthless because they were written underwater. The Solani documents are impossible to verify, countered Cathari Representative Sharpwing. How can we trust records that dissolve in normal atmosphere? This was exactly the type of cultural misunderstanding that humans had been uniquely qualified to resolve. Human diplomats understood that different species valued different types of evidence and approached conflicts from completely different perspectives. They found creative solutions that satisfied everyone's cultural and practical needs. The elder races tried to mediate these conflicts using their own approaches. Vorthak diplomats focused on mathematical division of resources based on calculated need. Illumi negotiators sought energy-efficient solutions that maximized output while minimizing waste. The collective tried to convince species to merge into unified minds that would eliminate conflict through shared consciousness. None of these approaches worked. Species that valued cultural independence, emotional satisfaction, and traditional ways of life found the elder race's solutions cold and insulting. "You offer us efficient resource division," Keithari Representative Sharpwing said during one failed negotiation. "But you ignore the spiritual significance of the mining sites to our people." Humans understood that some things matter more than efficiency. The fringe wars spread across multiple star systems. The Verdani plant-based civilization found itself in conflict with the metal-based constructors over terraforming methods. The gas giant dwelling floaters fought with the rock-based tunnelers over orbital mechanics and gravitational influences. Each conflict had unique cultural, historical, and technical elements that required creative solutions. The elder races, despite their advanced technology and ancient wisdom, could not provide the innovative thinking that human mediators had used to prevent these wars. "We estimate over 5 million casualties across all active conflicts," General Vorthon reported. "The violence is spreading as other species choose sides or attempt to claim territory while larger powers are distracted. Trade networks faced complete collapse. The complex scheduling systems that had moved goods efficiently between thousands of worlds had been designed and maintained by human logistics coordinators. These humans had combined mathematical planning with intuitive adjustments, responding to unexpected events and finding creative solutions to impossible scheduling conflicts. Without human oversight, the trade networks devolved into chaos. Ships carrying food supplies arrived at destinations that needed industrial equipment. Luxury goods were delivered to primitive worlds that lacked the technology to use them. Essential medical supplies were sent to worlds that had no sick populations. 17. Worlds are facing famine because food shipments were redirected to wrong destinations, reported Trade Coordinator Nexstar. "We cannot locate the missing supplies or determine where they were delivered." The elder races attempted to take direct control of trade scheduling using their own methods. The results were disasters. Vorthak mathematical precision created perfectly logical schedules that ignored real-world variables and unexpected events. Illumi energy-based calculations optimized for speed and efficiency, but missed cultural requirements and seasonal needs. The collective's approach was worst of all. They tried to manage trade through massive parallel processing of simple decisions, but this created millions of minor scheduling changes that contradicted each other and produced complete chaos. "We need the humans back," admitted Councillor Zethar during a private meeting with the other elder race leaders. "Our civilizations are collapsing without their support." "Impossible," replied Luxmund. "We cannot admit that a junior species was essential to our survival. It would undermine everything we have taught the galaxy about natural hierarchy and elder race superiority. Then we must find them and force them to return," suggested the collective's remaining unified voices. "They cannot have gone far. We will search every system in the galaxy." Search fleets were dispatched to every known system beyond council space. They found nothing. Humanity had vanished so completely that it seemed impossible. No ships, no colonies, no trace of where over 200 million humans could have gone. What the council did not know was that humanity had found something beyond their understanding. In the Kepler void, human scientists worked with technology that operated on principles the elder races had never discovered. "We have learned to manipulate space-time itself," reported Dr. Sora to the human leadership. "The ancient civilization left us tools that can fold reality, create pocket dimensions, and operate outside normal physics." Engineer Taeyang demonstrated the new capabilities to amazed human observers. "Watch," he said, reaching toward a metal bar. Instead of touching it, His hand seemed to convince the metal to exist 3 meters away. We are not moving objects through space. We are changing the relationships that define where objects exist. It is more than advanced technology, observed Dr. Minseok. It is a completely different understanding of reality itself. The ancients learned to work with the fundamental forces that create existence. Admiral Minhee studied the implications for human survival. With these capabilities, we could return to council space whenever we choose. We could appear anywhere, anytime without using conventional travel. The question is not whether we can return, replied Jiwon thoughtfully. The question is what we want to accomplish when we do. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency sessions continued daily as the crisis deepened. The elder races faced a choice they had never imagined: admit their dependence on the species they had dismissed as inferior, or watch their ancient civilizations collapse into chaos. How long can we maintain? 3 years after humanity's exodus, the galaxy received notice of their return in a way that redefined what was possible. No messages were sent. No diplomatic communications announced their intentions. Instead, human fleets simply appeared. They materialized simultaneously in orbit around every major world in council space, not arriving through hyperspace or any known form of travel, but emerging from nowhere as if reality had been convinced to create them in multiple places at once. Admiral Vexstar of the Illumi detected them first around his homeworld. His energy sensors registered impossible readings. The ships are not moving through space, he reported in confusion. They are existing in space, as if they had always been there. The vessels themselves were unlike anything in galactic records, sleek forms that seemed to bend light around them, constructed with materials that should not exist according to known physics. They were beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, as if human aesthetics had been enhanced beyond normal sensory processing. Leading the fleet around each world was an identical flagship, the HSS Transcendence, multiple versions of the same ship, existing simultaneously in different locations without any apparent connection through normal spacetime. This is impossible, Counselor Zethar stated, as he stared at the human fleet surrounding Vorthak Prime. No species can exist in multiple locations simultaneously. It violates fundamental laws of physics. The response came not through communication channels, but as a voice that seemed to speak directly into the minds of every intelligent being in council space. It was Jiwon's voice, but changed in ways that made it both familiar and alien. Greetings, Galactic Council, the voice said with calm authority. You declared us unfit for partnership. You attempted to redesign us as your tools. You believed our departure would be inconsequential. You were wrong on all counts. The implications sank in slowly. Humans were not just communicating across interstellar distances instantly. They were speaking directly into alien minds without using any detectable technology. What have you become? Zethar transmitted on all frequencies, hoping for a response. We became what you forced us to become, Jiwon's voice replied. You left us no choice but to transcend the limitations you tried to impose on us. The demonstration began with healing. Human crews, if they could still be called crews, emerged from their ships using methods that defied explanation. They did not use shuttles or transporters. They simply chose to exist in different locations. On Vorthak Prime, human technicians appeared inside the failing climate control centers. But these were not the same humans who had left 3 years earlier. They moved with impossible grace and worked with technology that responded to their intentions rather than their manipulations. The atmospheric processors are repairing themselves, reported Environmental Coordinator Kethtar in amazement. The humans are not using tools. They are communicating directly with the machines. What the Vorthak witnessed defied their understanding of how technology worked. The human technicians touched failing systems and the systems began to heal, not just returning to original function, but improving beyond their original specifications. Climate controls that had maintained adequate conditions for Vorthak life now created perfect environments that enhanced crystal growth and energy efficiency. They are not repairing our technology, Kethtar continued. They are teaching it to be better than we ever designed it to be. The same scene played out across Illumi space. Human engineers appeared inside the harmonic generator facilities that had been failing for months. The generators responded to human presence by spontaneously achieving perfect frequency alignment. But again, they did more than return to original function. The harmonic frequencies are more perfect than we ever achieved ourselves, Luxman reported with growing wonder. The humans have not just restored our energy systems, they have evolved them beyond what we thought possible. Individual Illumi who had been fading due to harmonic dysfunction found themselves not just restored to health, but enhanced. Their energy patterns stabilized at frequencies that provided clarity of thought and emotional satisfaction that their species had never experienced. The collective faced the most dramatic transformation. Human technicians appeared throughout their fragmented quantum networks and began reconnecting the broken links. But they did not simply restore the original hive mind. Instead, they created something new. We are becoming individual and unified. Simultaneously, the collective voices reported in wonder. We can choose to think alone or together, to be one mind or millions of minds as we desire. The fractured collective components that had been fighting among themselves suddenly remembered their connections to each other. But instead of losing their newfound individuality, they gained the ability to switch between individual consciousness and group unity at will. Dr. Hyun, now bearing the title Director of Applied Xenotechnology, appeared before shocked council scientists to explain what humanity had learned. But his appearance itself was explanation enough. He seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, showing aspects of himself that extended beyond normal three-dimensional space. We discovered that the universe operates on principles your sciences never explored, he explained to him, assembly of the galaxy's greatest minds. Reality is not fixed. It is a conversation between consciousness and possibility. When you understand this conversation, you can participate in it. The alien scientists struggled to comprehend what he was describing. You are saying that consciousness can alter physical laws? Asked Chief Researcher Vorthak of the Crystal Academy. I am saying that consciousness and physical laws are different aspects of the same underlying reality, Hyun replied patiently. Your sciences treat them as separate things, which limits what you can achieve. We learned to work with their unity. The demonstration continued as human ships began upgrading infrastructure throughout Council space. Trade networks that had collapsed into chaos suddenly operated with impossible efficiency. Ships appeared exactly where they were needed, carrying precisely the cargo required, arriving at the perfect time. The humans are not managing logistics through calculation, reported Trade Coordinator Nexstar. They seem to know intuitively what each world needs and when. It is as if they can sense the desires and requirements of entire populations. Conflicts that had raged for months ended as human mediators appeared among warring species. But these mediators did not negotiate in traditional ways. They seemed to help each species understand the deeper needs and fears that drove their conflicts. The human helped us see that our fight with the Solani was not really about mining rights, admitted Kithari Representative Sharpwing. It was about fear that our cultures would be forgotten in a galaxy controlled by elder races. When we understood this, we found ways to preserve our cultures while sharing resources. The transformation extended beyond technology and politics. Human medical teams appeared on worlds suffering from diseases and conditions that alien medicine could not treat. But they did not use conventional medical technology. The humans seemed to communicate directly with biological systems, reported Chief Medical Officer Health Corps of the Vorthak Medical Authority. They convinced diseased tissue to remember how to be healthy. They teach genetic structures to repair themselves. Patients who had suffered from incurable conditions found themselves not just healed but enhanced. Genetic weaknesses were corrected, immune systems strengthened, and biological capabilities improved beyond their species' natural limitations. What you call medicine, we call conversation, explained Dr. Sora as she worked with alien medical researchers. Biological systems want to be healthy. When you learn to speak their language, you can help them remember how to achieve optimal function. The message was becoming clear to everyone in the galaxy. Humanity had returned not as the supplicants who had left in defeat, but as beings who had transcended the limitations that defined galactic civilization. We understand your fear. Jiwan's voice spoke again into every mind in council space. You see us as we were 3 years ago and assume we seek revenge for the wrongs you did us. This is not our purpose. Then what do you want? Zethar transmitted, his crystal form flickering with anxiety. We want to offer you the same choice we faced, Jiwan replied. You can continue to exist within the limitations you have accepted. For millions of years fighting over resources and dominance within a fixed reality, or you can learn to transcend those limitations and participate in the infinite possibilities that exist beyond them. You are offering to teach us? Lux's mind asked, his energy form stabilizing with hope. We are offering to share what we learned, Jiwan confirmed. But the choice to transcend limitation must be freely made. It cannot be imposed as you tried to impose your limitations on us. The demonstration reached its climax as the human fleets revealed the full scope of their capabilities. The ships began to fade from normal space-time while remaining clearly visible. They existed simultaneously in council space and somewhere else entirely, showing that they were no longer bound by conventional physics. We have prepared new homes beyond the galactic rim, Jiwan explained. Communities where species can learn to work with reality rather than being constrained by it. Any who wish to join us are welcome.